Thank you very much, Madhu, for accepting our invitation to join this interview. I think before we start, it would be great to hear a bit about yourself and your background, and then we can take it forward.
Perfect, great. No, happy to do this. Thanks, Gil. Just my background, which I think is a little bit leapfroggy from place to place, but I think might be helpful for this discussion. You know, I started my career as a management consultant, focused not in insurance, but on businesses that were really trying to use data and analytics to create value in credit card, mortgage, consumer finance. And that was, 30 years ago with sort of a revolutionary use of data. Then I spent almost 10 years on the venture and private equity side, again, outside of insurance, but backing small data-backed companies and seeing how they could grow and change the industries they were in. And I took a lucky, right turn into the insurance industry about 13, 14 years ago when I became the first head of data science at AIG, focused on the commercial insurance industry. And again, no insurance background, but the wealth of data and ways to make differences I thought were very attractive. Then became the chief underwriting officer at AIG for all the property and casualty lines. And then about 2 years ago, became the president and now CEO of Corvus, which is a cyber MGA focused just on cyber lines for commercial customers. And we're operating in that market and have been for about 5 years now.
Amazing. So I think that's great. And based on your experience, I would like to start with the first question about the market sentiment and the insurance industry. How do you see the current state of the industry in terms of valuations? Insurtech companies were dropping down significantly. Are we sobering? What's expecting us?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. And in some ways, I think the kind of parallel to the early .com era and the bubble and bust is an interesting parallel. And so just as things were irrationally frothy 2 years ago, they've become possibly irrationally pessimistic right now. And, again, think of like 2000, 2001 and the .com era, even good companies, PayPal, Salesforce were viewed as, because they were internet companies, were viewed as negatives. And so I think you've got some good Insurtech disruptors that are actually being cast in the same light as all the business models that failed. And I think really what will happen in the next couple of years is that, and what we're counting on at Corvus, is a sort of rationalization where, it was oversold, overbought, now oversold. And now it's a chance for the real kind of resilient, focused customers to emerge, and the ones that are really sort of creating change in the industry and get properly valued. But it is kind of a hard left going to a hard right now, and it's valuations and things are a bit crazy. And the right thing is that business models that didn't make sense are running out of cash, but it usually takes a while for all of those to sort of filter through the system.
So how do you see this market changing in the next 2 or 3 years?
I think it'll be a more focused, rationalized view of disruption. So 2 years ago was everything in insurance should be disrupted. Agents, homeowners, commercial, everything. Now I think the disruption actually makes sense in areas where a new solution is needed. It turns out that huge parts of the homeowners market traded just fine the way they were before, and the disruption was more localized. Now in a line like cyber, you need a lot of new data, a different policyholder engagement method. There's all new kinds of analytics and approaches and technology to do it correctly. I view that as a category where a new entrant naturally makes sense. And I think you'll start seeing in areas like commercial auto, telematics driven, cyber, some of the flood and cat areas where new approaches are needed. That's where the kind of Insurtechs will survive and thrive, not that sort of the whole market was broadly disrupted. And so the places for disruption were unevenly distributed. And I think that'll become more clear in the next couple of years.
Yeah, I could not agree more. I think my next question is if you can consider what are the major 2 or 3 trends in the insurance industry for the market for the next year?
Yeah, no, look, I think there's got to be an alignment of or where the opportunity comes from is where the current sort of supply and demand doesn't work, or where markets aren't clearing. And so again, I use cyber as an example where the demand is going through the roof, but traditional carriers and traditional approaches don't make sense. So it's not really new entrants stealing share or underpricing. It's really kind of building a new solution for that. And there's pockets of that all over the place. New risks, new technology vectors that are changing. And so again, I think you'll see these disrupted areas, not generally across the board, but in lines like cyber, telematics driven ones, things like that, that'll happen. And those will stick out. I think the other one is you'll see more partnering between traditional carriers and some of these new disruptive companies, which is, it takes a while, I think, a recognition of, hey, this is different enough. We could try it. Let's try it, addressing it again. Maybe we're not seeing the full potential, and the kind of creativity for big traditional carriers and incumbents to partner with these new companies. It's not always a great fit. And so I think in some ways, it's the Insurtechs that also have Insure is the same size as tech, I think, that will be successful here. Fitting into a traditional insurance company and the way they do things is I think, actually its own skill set, but something that will differentiate the successful partnering Insurtech. So I think that's the second one. And then the third one, you said to throw in a bonus one, but I think one other one is just, this traditional return to old-fashioned metrics, where it's not, where it's combined ratio, loss ratio, underwriting income, all the sort of boring traditional things that show that you're taking risk properly in a sustainable way will become the vogue again. And things like profitability, it's sort of back to basics on a lot of those things. I think those will become the metrics that the good companies use to really distinguish themselves.
Yeah, this is fantastic. I think this is super interesting to see that what you think is that one of the major trends is going back to normality, right?
That's right.
Results, profitability, where should we be like 5 years ago? Yeah,
that's right. And look, there's one last point if I can make, which is there was a lot of talent from outside the industry that poured in the last few years, attracted to sort of the frothiness. And it's my hope, though, that all that talent doesn't recede away. I hope there's enough entrepreneurs and smart folks who got intrigued by the problems in the insurance industry, and that we don't lose the human capital part that was come through, and we end up with without losing all of those disruptors and imaginative folks. And I think that's a big human capital challenge for insurance and Insurtech that we need to stay on our front foot with.
Amazing. So first of all, I would like to thank you, Madhu, for these great initiatives and great ideas. And thank you for joining us for this interview session.
Thank you so much. My pleasure. Good to see you, Gil.
It's good to see you.